The video game industry has been telling social stories now for decades. How has that foundation helped when jumping into the mixed reality realm?
I mean, that's foundational, right? We stand on top of that. But the difference, of course, I mean, is still quite different, because inside the video game, that's a world of your creation. This is the real world, and the real world is unpredictable, right? In games, there's not all games, of course, right? There's some emergent gameplay, which is amazing and fascinating and very relevant. And there's like remarkable new experimentation with characters that can learn. They have behaviors that are learned, and forms of awareness that we haven't seen before just recently. But now if you're in the real world, so this is the dynamism of the real world, right? It's like you can't predict what will happen in space. I mean, I guess you can control it. If you have a theme park, you can control it. But once you walk out onto the streets, who knows what will happen? So a new mechanism has to be put in place in order to understand what's happening out there. So, we walk out on a street corner. Now I'm going to just to get a little bit towards mixed reality, a future of spatial computing. I walk out onto the street corner in a city, and on that street corner could be like, aligned in geospace right there, layers and layers. Like could be 1,000 layers of possible. Call them applications, but it's a dry word. It could be a whole universe, right? I decide to unlock, the city application, or I unlock the transportation, or the health, or the education, or entertainment times 1,000 possible experiences. Could be games, could be artistic expressions, right? On and on and on. These layers could be sitting there, right, aligned in space, and waiting for you to, choose to unlock them and let them, envelop you, right? They're in situ, around you in that corner. But you're there with other people. There's things going on. There's cars. There's traffic. You're with other people. You've done all sorts of things through your entire history leading up to that point, right? All of those things are factored, or will be factored, in spatial computing. Spatial computing means it's the understanding of what's happening in situ right then, and it's the awareness of what's happened before, whether it's what you've done before or the collection of people. And so now the application, I'm just saying down the line, the application will factor these things, a really interesting one, will factor these things, and it'll shapeshift and react accordingly. There really will be, computing happening. This can happen not just on a street corner. This can happen in a university, right? This can happen in the place where you work. It can happen in your hospital. So mixed reality is going to be prolific through all of those sectors, and there's two things going on. The platform itself needs to accommodate this adaptation to what's happening at the moment and who's there, and the context, really, right? It's all about the context. And think about it, eventually we'll have layers and layers, and they'll be across whole cities and cities around the world, and cities will connect to one another across all sectors. Eventually you will have something like a version of the internet, but it won't look and feel like the internet exactly. It'll be volumetric, it'll be different, it'll be all media types. You wait till 5G really becomes something, and suddenly you have really high fidelity starting to appear. You're starting to get to a place where people can, like hollow portal around the world, so you have co-presence. You suddenly have changed the nature of communities because people can be in different places at once. VR is not really going to offer. VR, we can do these things technically, but it's isolating. If we're talking about real life, so I want my friends and family who I've kind of not seen because they've all moved around. Now we can be present together, or we work in the same company and we can be volumetrically present together, it's absolutely going to happen. We want to have a place for our, back to the universe, right? So if we want to have our universe living persistently in real world space, not all universes translate, again, right? Going back to, I made a fantasy universe, it really has to stay contained in that. So I'm either only going to do that online or VR, what have you, but I do think as mixed reality / spatial computing comes online, people will be thinking about more universes that can couple with the real world or make sense logic-wise with the real world. So as it becomes possible to sort of house and serve persistent adaptive content in situ in the real world, there's a whole evolution of that. There's a lot coming.